Dennis and Kieran. Turn it up on 2FM.
Live from our Cork studios, Miss Beth Wallace. Let's give her a big round of applause. Hello, Beth Wallace.
Good evening, Dublin. How are we?
What's going on?
Good.
Do you know what I think you'd be really good at? You'd be really good at giving the votes for the Irish in the Eurovision.
Ooh, can
You
you
know,
put word
good
in for me
evening,
in Dublin?
Stockholm.
Yeah, exactly. Can you put word in for me for the next time?
We'll see what we can do.
We kind of want that gig as well, though.
We kind of want to
Yeah.
do that, we're not
Sharesies, the
going to
three
lie.
of us can do it.
Hey, speaking of sharing, that perfectly leads into actually what
Excellent segue.
Hey, look, Beth, you know what? We're professionals. So let's chat about this. Polyamory, open relationships, swinging.
Yeah,
What's going on here?
One of my favourite topics of conversation. You were going to say something there, Kieran?
Yeah, just in modern day, 2016, because this has
Yeah.
been around for generations and decades and
absolutely.
years. And,
Do you know, actually, interestingly enough, like monogamy is the sort of new kid on the block,
Yeah.
actually, in terms of relationships.
Sure.
You know, that's only really been the sort of gold standard culturally and societally for the last few hundred years. Prior to that, and particularly in Ireland when we had the Brehon Laws.
Oh, yeah.
You know, monogamy was sort of reasonably rare.
It was a fluid thing, you know? It was, yeah.
In pagan times, everybody was doing each other. That was the great thing about being a pagan, and the Celts, and there was orgies, and everyone used to like cover their bodies in paint and just do each other, you know?
I'd say a fair bit of historical license there, but you might not.
Look, basically just Kira wants to be doing everybody, Beth, is what she's saying.
Well, do you know what?
Yeah.
And there's no reason why she shouldn't.
No, I hear you.
As long as all those other everybody's are willing and in
Kira can be
agreement,
very
then-
forceful, but they're mostly willing, like as in the sense that it is. There's always consent, but sometimes I think Kira's being very pressuring to those poor gentlemen.
Well, listen, polyamory, open relationships, swinging. Let me get one thing straight, actually, before we kind of get into the nitty gritty of it. In terms of the difference between polyamory and open relationships. So when people talk about polyamory, what they're talking about is actually several different relationships at the one time with people who are aware of each other and consenting to all those different relationships happening. So that's sort of like... it's like monogamy, but with lots of different people, with maybe one person. And then open relationships being something completely different. So then that's, you know, where sexual encounters or sexual relationships, whether they're one-off or ongoing, with lots of different people are permitted. So one of the things that I know that really bothers people who are in the sort of polyamory community in Ireland is when people think that polyamory is all about sex, when it isn't. It's actually all about relationship. It's the open relationships that are a little bit more about sex than polyamory. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so let me get this straight.
Yeah.
I could, for example, have a girlfriend, but then also another girlfriend, or maybe even a third girlfriend, and in the polyamory definition, I know it's a kind of a contradiction, but I'm committed to all of those different girls.
Exactly.
And then if one of them heard about me doing a girl that wasn't one of those girls, she might be like, oh my God, what's wrong with you?
And she would be well within her rights
Sure,
to do that.
within
because that would be-
polyamory.
Exactly, because
Okay.
that would be outside of your agreement. The agreement that you've all consented to, that, you know, that extra on the side woman would be outside of what you've agreed.
I see.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
that's not what an open relationship is.
Yeah, so an open relationship is, say for example, you might have one primary partner and then you might agree that you're both free to sexually play with other people within particular framework that you agree that's right for your relationship. So say for example, you might say, if you go to Dublin for a weekend, sweetheart, you can do what you want with other people as long as you have safe sex. I don't mind what you do, and I either do or I do not want to hear all about it when you come back. You know, I would know people who are in open relationships who do tell each other absolutely everything that they get up to outside their primary relationship.
I don't know.
And then I know people who don't. So it's sort of like...
Is this really common in Ireland?
I wouldn't say it's really common, but I think it's growing, to be honest. I know a lot more people who are experimenting with open relationships, experimenting with polyamory. They're sort of treading slowly and carefully into it. If their prior history is monogamy, then they're sort of, you know, dipping a toe in, seeing how it feels, seeing what it's like, seeing what sort of jealousies, you know, arise or don't. And I know a lot of younger people who are experimenting with it.
Why?
And I know a
wonder.
lot of people who are sort of much more happy to talk about being experimenting with it. I don't know, to be honest. I think that like it's sort of become a little bit more common in mainstream culture, so it's a little bit more present. I think people are generally, you know, with the advent of divorce, with people, you know, with same-sex marriage, I think the idea that relationships don't need to look a particular way is...
It's opening people's minds a bit. It's
exactly.
giving people a little bit of imagination.
Yeah, you don't don't have to get married by the time you're 25 and have 2.5 children and be with the same person for the
Sure,
rest
that's
of your
what
life.
happened now because we voted for the gay marriage. Everything's fecked now. Do you know what I mean? Sure, it's all over the place.
I'm all for, you know, these new trends and stuff like that or whatever. You know, I think that it's obviously it's going to become more of the norm or whatever. But I do have some slight reservations because I remember myself and Chris, we chatted to this Australian woman called Holly Hill, and she's written a couple of books. I think one was called Sugar Babe and the other was called Toy Boy. But I remember myself and Chris chatted to her, and she was telling us about how she had an open relationship with her partner, and they had some set rules. And one of the rules was he wasn't allowed to buy her presents. This other woman, he wasn't allowed to buy her presents, or they weren't allowed to have their own little in-jokes and kind of create that intimate feel that, let's say, the two of them had together. So myself and Chris were open-minded, we were listening to her talking, and it sounded like, you know,
You see, it sounded like she had it down, and she sounded so happy and calm with it, and then...
So a couple of months later, even maybe a year or so later, myself and Chris chatted to her again, and her relationship had broken down, and basically it was jealousy that got in the way.
Yeah.
She could not take it. She could not take her partner being with another woman.
And I would have to say that is the key thing that arises for people is their insecurities. Like, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not thin enough or smart enough, or there's some sort of comparison that happens.
That's inevitable.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
it's human nature.
It's human nature.
It's
That's what
human
I'm
nature.
saying.
And so the question is, how do you then deal with that? That's the key thing, is what do you do with that? Like, do you kind of, you've a couple of different choices. You can either say, that's it, I can't deal with it, I'm not, you know, this isn't working for us, I'm out of here. Or, you know, I'm not going to let you do that, or if you do that anymore, then I'm going to leave, etc. Or you can take the sort of grown-up route and you can say, wow, okay, I've got this insecurity stuff to deal with, I've got this jealousy stuff to deal with. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go see a counsellor for a bit, or maybe we can go together, we can see if we can move through it, I can see if I can deal with it.
Let me ask you this.
And if I can't, I can't. And if I can, then we open ourselves up potentially to more love in our lives, and, you know, and a richer experience of life, rather than trying to control each other, you know?
Sure, no, I get that,
I
but it's
understand that.
I think personally that's a lot easier said than done, what you just said, and I think it's a
Absolutely.
huge journey of growth for you as a person.
Enormously.
Listen though, answer me this, because you seem like a lady who is enlightened on this. You seem like you have insight into this, and I think that sometimes people can have a overly basic view of it. I would sometimes say that if a partner was to suggest this to another partner, that basically something is wrong in that relationship.
Okay.
Or am I wrong in saying that?
I would say that it's possible that there may be
Are they
something.
filling this void that they have with this?
Possibly. I think the key thing here is to be self-aware. Like, why do I want this? What am I trying to get out of this? If I'm wanting to be with other people sexually because my primary relationship isn't satisfying me sexually, then there's an issue that needs to be dealt with in the primary relationship.
Then basically you want better sex and you aren't getting it in a relationship, and doing this just seems kind of, you know,
I
like a
think
bandage instead of a solution.
My experience would be if you're looking outside the relationship to fix something in the primary relationship, then it's not going to work. People are going to get hurt.
Do you know what I've heard about this? And maybe you can give me insight, Beth. I've heard that it's not all the time, but it's very often the man that will push this dynamic of relationship, and that it's rarely the woman that will suggest it. And that could be because of years of conditioning that, you know, oh, you're a slut if you think like that, and you're a filthy human being for having desires like this if you're a woman. But it seems to be more so the man that initiates all this kind of
I
stuff.
have to say that's not my experience.
Really? Fair enough.
Yeah, it's not my experience. I think that it may certainly appear like that, and perhaps in public it might appear like that. But certainly my experience with the people that I know in polyamorous relationships, in open relationships, it's either completely 50-50, we're both absolutely 100% into it, and I also know a lot of women who have raised the conversation with their male partner, and the male partner, or indeed their female partner, and the other partner has sort of gone, oh wow, okay, let's talk about that.
Okay.
I had no idea you were interested in that as a possibility. But I think, you know, Chris, you hit on a really valid point, that if people are looking to fill a gap in terms of something that's missing in their primary relationship, then it's kind of got disaster written all over it. If they're looking to enhance their primary relationship and to bring more love into their life, and, you know, better, and have experiences with other people in order to better their relationship, and there's complete openness and honesty between the couple, then I think they have a really good chance of that working for them and that being a really good experience.
Well, swinging, okay.
Yeah.
that seems to kind of tick the boxes there for you know, all of those needs, because you go to these swinging events as a couple, you end up swapping with another couple, but you still go home together. Do you know that sort of way?
Yeah, absolutely. That's generally how swinging happens. Yeah.
So to me, when I'm looking at, you know, all of these definitions, whatever, I'm like, swinging. Okay, if the both of you are into it, if the both of you are consensual, it kind of seems like the better option, let's say.
I think different things work for different people, you know, like I would know the people that I know who are in polyamorous relationships, what they want is relationship. That's what they're into. They're into the intimacy, the connection, the ongoing relationship. You know, they're into sort of the deep connection between one or two or more people. They're not interested in having lots of sex with lots of people.
Sure.
And then there are other people who are interested in having lots of sex with lots of people, but they actually don't really want the sort of cumbersome relationship bits.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they want the strings attached.
Yeah, exactly.
Beth, let me ask you this. You were on with us a few weeks ago. I can't remember exactly when it was, but I remember we were chatting about BDSM, okay?
Yeah.
And you mentioned that for people who are interested in BDSM, there are things called, was it a munch?
Yes, a munch.
Like that's where you all hang out and you all have a common interest, which is BDSM, and as a result of that, you can organise events and this and that and all of that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And it's a great way to meet people safely.
That's what I remember you emphasising that it was a safe thing. Is there like an equivalent of that for this, if you understand me?
Yeah, there would be. There's a group.
And do they have a name like the munch, or is it just?
No, they don't. They don't have a specific kind of name. It's not like you go to the polyamory group and it'll be called exactly the same thing in Dublin as it will in San Francisco.
I hear you.
No, not unfortunately not. There's a group in Ireland called Polyamory Ireland, and you can find them on a website called Meetup.
Okay.
And they are an organisation, voluntary organisation, just run by volunteers, and they organise get-togethers where people can meet each other. It's not it's not a place to pick up people. It's not a place to...
Oh, no, I understand. This is business, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, it's just kind of chats and how are you?
I get
meeting
you.
people of like mind and that sort of thing.
Yeah, Beth, you are going to be running some masterclasses online during the summer about this whole theme of open relationships.
Yeah, exactly. I'm starting, I think I can't remember the date, I think it's the 9th of June. The first one is an introduction, and then various dates throughout the summer. I'm going to do some webinars just to give people some skills in terms of if this is something that they're interested in exploring or experimenting with. I think it's really important that people have some skills to be able to navigate it. You know, like what are we going to come up against here? How do we deal with insecurities? How do we deal with jealousy? How do we manage that as a couple? And so I just thought it was really, you know, a